Good morning and welcome to the Capital Gang. A little bit late, but we have, what do we say, Moses? A bevy of topics ready for you. And in the studio already, I have Honorable Semoju. Most welcome to the Capital Gang. We missed you last week, actually. Yes.
I also missed you.
And then we have a new guest, Honorable Francis Katabazi. You're most welcome to the Capital Gang, Honorable Katabazi.
It's indeed an honor for me to be here for the very first time.
For the very first time?
Yes.
All the way from Kalungu East?
Yes.
You're most welcome to the gang.
Thank you.
People don't know those things. He represents Lukaya. That's the way the constituency starts.
That's where the constituency starts.
Yeah, so
and ends where?
Kamutuza.
Villages.
I bought Honorable Mpuga.
After Ruera.
Yes.
Ruera is part of his constituency.
Okay.
Yeah.
Part of Ruera.
Yeah.
Part of Ruera. And which one is Honorable Mpuga? You know,
after
Mpuga
Matanga.
is the one who has been in the news.
Yes.
Mpuga is Nyendo.
Nyendo, but he's my neighbor.
Nsenene.
You mean look at that place that we are trying to erase of history?
How?
1979 Liberation War, Airport.
This UPC.
That's the voice of my good friend Joseph Otieno. You're most welcome to Capital Gang.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah.
Always a delight when I'm coming here.
Indeed, yes. And this week, unfortunately, you attended funeral service of a fallen heroine.
Yes, extremely sad actually that we talking actually 79. I didn't really link it up, but today Mrs. Paul Mwanga is being rested at her home in Lukaya. Yes, yesterday I was at Namrembe plus many other citizens celebrating and seeing off the, if you can call the first lady of the military commission, but of course the wife of the last vice president and the wife of the last defense minister in the Republic of Uganda, and a man who some of your colleagues were there with me yesterday and they were talking about it, and I was reminding them that at the Moshi Unity Conference, Paul Mwanga went in full military combat because he came from the war front. Other people went there with briefcases and notebooks, so you can see.
Right. So
the younger people don't know.
That
I may
talking about
remind
UPC.
them that Mwanga, the husband, is the one who cheated the elections for UPC. Took over the work of Electoral Commissioner under Sekono and declared the UPC.
And later threw them under the bus and joined the Rutwa in 1985.
How did I know that was coming? We have waited for 40 years for evidence against Paul Mwanga, and it hasn't been appearing. I'm sure Mr. Museveni Mr. Museveni is really embarrassed that you guys are raising this topic right now.
Someone went on Radio Uganda and stopped announcement of results.
No. He actually
became the chairman of Electoral Commission and eventually announced UPC.
I know.
And eventually became its defense minister and vice president.
Ibrahim.
So the chairperson, imagine Chigundu announcing elections today.
Not Chigundu. Today the equivalent will be maybe Sare.
Announcing the results. Yes. And then imagine as defense minister and vice president.
So, Ivan, before I'd introduced you, you're most welcome to Gang. And
the young boy of Nyabushozi history.
And veteran young journalist Dennis Wandera, you're most welcome to Gang as well.
Thank you, Oscar.
Yes.
Good to have you.
So our guests, our guest this morning, Honorable Francis Katabazi.
Good morning, Oscar.
The mergers, our first topic for discussion.
Yes.
The mergers.
Yes.
And in fact, coming late to Gang, you really feel the pain of driving on Mawanda Road, all those potholes.
Yeah.
But that pain is shared equally.
Yes.
Yeah.
So which mergers, which agencies are going to be merged, sent back to the ministries? Which ones are staying, and which ones are you promoting for staying?
Okay, it's quite a number of agencies. Incidentally, government wants to behave like Jesus, that you build a temple and then you break it and then that kind of thing, because it's government that suggested to put up these agencies. Now, it came full swing that they want to rationalize to mainstream, or to put back to the mainstream ministries, majority of the agencies. But I think for some it could not have been in good spirit. For some, of course, we also stood strong. I'll give an example of UCDA. UCDA, we stood strong against mainstreaming it because it is the reason why Uganda...
UCDA is the coffee?
Uganda Coffee Development Authority. After its establishment, we've realized that Uganda's robust coffee is number one in terms of quality in the whole world, and Arabica is number 3, just next to Kenya and Ethiopia. So it's not good to change a winning team. So we thought they had done quite a tremendous job. But again, we found it that they were underfunded actually, because like in terms of providing quality seedlings, they are given little money, and those with arrears are not paid. So people borrow from the banks to invest in nursery beds and stuff like that. And then when you go back to, I'm happy to see Mr. Tien here. I'll give you something, at least which I remember, that was brought by your government, the UPC government. I think it was designed by Nekion, is it called Odoko Nekion? Something like that, where he designed a formula of 3T, triple T, triple C. You know about that? Where triple T stood for tourism. It was an effort to increase forex earnings. And then they said, let's increase tourism. That was one of the T's. Tea itself, and then tobacco. And then the other one was triple C, which was copper, coffee, and cotton. And during our days in school, we were all studying, and we knew in SST that the Uganda's cash crops, it was coffee, cotton, those traditional ones. And indeed, we found that that's why we had to protect also the cotton organization, which... So things to do with agriculture, we had to save them because agriculture is the backbone. So when you look at how cotton and coffee was earning us forex earnings, and then now we want to do away with an organization that is streamlining it. But as we talk now, I think there are some policies which have been... bills which have been passed into acts. For example, Tobacco Act and all these others, in order to see the business going away. You'll find that in West Nile right now, we used to zone that tobacco was mainly in West Nile, cotton was mainly northern Uganda, the Basoga have a bicado, sugar cane, which is a new one, a new entrant, and then coffee for us in central, and then the hills of Elgon and Kasese, that's Arabica. So this is something which employs, like, for example, I'm just talking of cotton, rather coffee. So mainstreaming it would mean we should do away with the researchers. Researchers do a lot in maintaining the quality, because what is selling us now is the quality. In fact, the only issue I have is Uganda withdrew from the International Coffee Organization, but otherwise, coffee farmers would be celebrating. We'll be going to the bank with maybe a kilo of FAQ at maybe even 30,000, like it is in Kenya. subscription of I think $50,000. So I find that a very lame excuse, and it is very absurd. We would actually be doing better. You know, when this war came in of Ukraine and Russia, even anyone you are demanding any money, we say, can't you see there is a problem now? The war in Ukraine, the war. But that war, I think with the coffee, I don't know, it just went up.
Yeah.
Coffee is going up on the international market. And then countries like the biggest producers, for example, like Brazil, had what we call stemming. So they stem their coffee so that it can grow. You know, when the coffee overgrows, there is a time when one tree is less productive. So they stem it so it can grow into new ones, so that the production can go. So this will take them like 3 years to regain there. Now, our quota was taken away, and individuals started dealing in that. So it's a very big setback on the Ugandan side. But however, the forces of demand and supply still have forced the prices to go up to, I think now we are talking of a kilo of FAQ is about now 12,500, because I'm I'm speaking so much about coffee because I'm from a coffee growing area.
Capacity.
Yes,
it makes sense.
So this is something which would help us to increase our forex earnings, and this business employs 12.5 million people. So it's a very important sector. Then cotton, and before I leave coffee, we give them about UCDA. We were giving them 95 billion per year, and they are able also to bring in non-tax revenue of about 66. So you find that really it's for development, but at the same time they also bring in something in the consolidated fund. That is a very important issue. Now, cotton is poorly funded. I don't know why this government has a bias on things which were started those days, like the cooperatives and so on, because in the strategy there were cooperatives to
the young man should tell us.
The cooperatives were helped a lot in the building, because now you just tell me, we look at the demand for cotton. Do we need cotton clothes? Yes, we do. When we were growing up, we used to have bed sheets called ginger.
That's right.
Because they were coming from ginger 90 and shorts. So if you were very stubborn, I suggest Honorable Semuju must have been a stubborn child. You could buy him a catch short, and he will never tear it. It was very strong. But right now, how can you say, when we are increasing in number, and then you kill an entity like, a business like cotton, where we still put on clothes, the demand is bigger, but cotton...
and the traders are striking.
Yes.
Thank you so much for a kind of background. Honorable Semuju, there are some of these ones, it's clear where they are going to. For example, if you say the Higher Education Students Financing Board, one would assume that goes to the Ministry of Education. But what about the Uganda National Meteorological Authority or Warehouse Receipt System Authority?
Back to the Minister of Water.
Pardon?
Water, environment,
yes.
and But Oscar, for me, the
National NGO Board goes where?
it was in internal affairs.
It was in internal
They are the
affairs.
ones regulating NGOs. But let me just give a background. How did this start? The Minister of Public Service, I think Cabinet assigned him to be the lead person. Initially, the Honorable Mukasa brought one bill for all in the Parliament. And he said, we just do away with all these agencies and one law. The lawyers in Parliament said it is unlawful because you are seeking to repeal a number of acts of Parliament. You can't do it in one bill. But the MPs were also uncomfortable because I think I didn't know at that time that their eyes had already been set on a particular institution that they wanted saved. By passing an omnibus bill, they would not be able to do that. I don't agree with Honorable Katabazi. But let me first finish the background. Government said the reason they are rationalizing was proliferation of agencies. They had become about 177, I think. And they wanted initially 70-something to go away, eventually 69. But I think only about 13 have so far been merged. Proliferation, but they also said duplication. That the work of ministries are now being done by agencies, but sometimes there are even more than one agency to do the same thing. And they say they need to merge them, to merge the mandate, reduce on the cost of administration. Those were the key issues that government presented. The party of the Honorable Katabaz, and that's why I had trouble with them in Parliament, and mainly almost all the opposition political parties, our policy is for a small, lean government, all of us. And if this government that is mismanaging Uganda adopts one of your policies, then you can't turn around. And I had trouble with them. For me, I supported every bill that they brought. I said I support government. Rationalize, let everything go away, because our policy says that we need a lean government. I only asked government that the bureaucratic nature of the old traditional ministries that made people clamor for agencies, deal with it. The second issue was the issue of remuneration, because at the time many of these agencies were being created, we were told it was not possible to attract professionals, highly competent people, and then you pay them 1.5 million, 3 million, like they were paying PS and commissioners. It's a bit of improvement now. I said deal with those, and then to find the right people to run these ministries and departments. I was on TV and I told them I am comfortable. I have been at the passport control at the Ministry of Internal Affairs. You see your work done. People who are lining that whole stretch of Gorovi Road, they now have where to sit. They actually operate like a bank. You go and pick a number. When your turn comes, you will go in. Initially, you had to look for someone there. He will be the one escorting you to go and get photographed and get a passport. So you can see some order there. So my view is that it is possible for that order to be replicated in ministries when you find the right people. I am not an advocate that agencies are doing things, but I am not sure that the times the Honorable Kataba spoke about of cotton, that this cotton development authority existed. I am not sure. No. So therefore, you cannot attribute the success in the cotton, because actually now cotton production in Uganda has gone down tremendously during the time of the Cotton Development Authority. So you cannot say that it is because of this cotton that has done. Even coffee itself.
Okay.
1962, Uganda was exporting 3.5 million bags of coffee. That coffee of the years, Coffee Authority was not there. So many years later, with the involvement of the military, NADS, everybody, Museveni and his family, with the population now, because that time we are less than 10 million, exporting 3.6. We are now 45 million people exporting about 7 or less, with the Coffee Development Authority in existence, with the Sale and military people involved. You therefore cannot attribute the success, because in my village where I was born, people are growing coffee without the military, without that Coffee Authority, without anything. The Uganda Kingdom, as of today, has distributed 10 million seedlings. The Katikiri was in Butambara over the weekend.
For coffee.
So you don't need these organizations. You don't need them. Oscar, finally, look at the wage bill. We are, with Katavas, we are about to pass a budget for next financial year. The wage bill, just the wage bill alone, wages and salary, has gone to 7.5. The budget of trillion. Budget is 58 trillion. 7.5 is wages. You also have a debt burden of 25 trillion. So you have no budget to speak about. In fact, I was telling a colleague, when you add other benefits, vehicles, fuel, what, you have more staff than the money. The money to use to do work. So I as a person, I support rationalization. I am only crying because, as I said when I was on TV, the trouble is that you're going to pick professionals, take them to a ministry that is headed by someone who should have retired. There is a minister who keeps coming to Parliament, and he doesn't even know he's in Parliament. They have to keep reminding him. Sure. Yes, I'm not going to mention his name.
I think you have mentioned it.
Yeah.
Well done, Ibrahim.
So the MPs were contradictory. I disagree with the members. They were contradictory. The same reason they gave when they were rationalizing the agencies that you have listed, salaries, money, what? When they came to the ones that they wanted, those reasons vanished. Now they found some other things because you were rationalizing for duplication, you are rationalizing for proliferation, you are rationalizing to reduce the wage bill. I want an MP to tell me that those reasons don't apply to the organization that they saved.
So, Ibrahim, what are the interests of those colleagues of yours?
Just hold on. Let me first go to Mr. Wandera here, who is a journal. Yes. Interesting from Honorable Semoju. But other organizations, he mentioned Passport Office, but the driving license people as well.
They are very good.
Very, very good.
And the ministry.
Yes, and the ministry. Yeah. Those are some of the good ones that where we see that
they are lessons.
You would agree?
Absolutely. I think just like the Honorable Semoju said, the rationalization debate started around 2021, where government listed about 157. There has been so much debate about like how they can reduce them. They came to 69, and I think 33 were tabled. 13 have been rejected to the rationalization bit, and it's very interesting the debates that are coming around, and the Honorable is bringing them out quite clearly and vividly when it comes to what you'd actually look at as vested interests, which are coming in from wherever. One of the most interesting mergers for me was, for instance, the Dairy Development Authority. There were many reasons for saving it, and one of which is about the revenue that has tripled to about 287 billion from it has actually tripled from 287 to about 990 something. Over the years, and that was reason enough for MPs to say we need to save this particular agency. The other that I saw that was very mind-blowing was UNRWA versus the Uganda Road Fund, which were also saved. There has been a lot of speculation around there, and I think even the Speaker of Parliament came out to pronounce herself on the same, that there's been a speculation that some MPs have been bribed. Some MPs were bribed.
We're going to discuss that next.
And for me, when I look, for instance, at Uganda Road Fund, in fact, as a person, I feel it's important to leave some of these authorities to operate. If you look at the one that has tripled its revenue, for instance, the Dairy Development Authority, you look at it from the wider spectrum of trying to widen the income base, the revenue base for the country, and when you look at some agencies that have not even been operationalized. For instance, the Uganda Road Fund, from when it was put in place in in 2010, January 2010. Up to now, it has never been operationalized. But there were reasons for putting it in place. It was supposed to.
What does that mean, not being operationalized?
It has, it has not been given its mandate like the Uganda Road Fund. It has never stood as an agency on itself because it has been running under UNRWA all this time.
It's independent.
Its independence is there, but what I mean is Uganda Road Fund had its own mandate when it was being formed, and so was UNRWA. The challenge is some of the work that's supposed to be done by Uganda Road Fund has been fused into UNRWA, and these are some of the reasons as to why it was formed was, for instance, to collect the fuel levies, to collect the road toll, toll bridges, to collect, to be in charge of the weighing stations, to collect those funds, and some of those funds and all those levies were supposed to be given to different. They had different purposes for which they were going to be operationalized, and one of which was to. So
you're saying they kind of have the same role, nearly the same role.
Yeah, and again, the fact that
but both of them were saved.
Yeah, it was
Uganda Road
saved.
Fund and UNRWA was saved.
It was saved and UNRWA was saved. So. When Honorable is talking about vested interests, which we are going to be discussing later, which we are going to be discussing, I feel there are those that have reasons for sure to be saved.
First, pause there because I know some topics that Honorable Semuju will not talk about.
We shall talk about.
You want me to come here and tell you that MPs you are bribed to put his hand? I'm not going to say it.
Is that why you had no time for the next question?
So, Joseph Otieno, they even as you discuss all this, I think I know you are aware because you know a lot about what happens.
By the way, was a more institutional government.
More institutional government. But many of these are duplicated in state house offices as well. There's a state house desk in charge of land. State house where Dr. Diana Twine came
Oscar,
from.
you're putting it badly. The president who is saying agencies should go back to the ministries, he has himself migrated there. He works through initiatives on science, on banana, on what. And he says ministries are housing. He can't work with the ministries. Now he says agencies should go back. He has left long ago.
So that was to you.
No, it's very unfortunate actually that we are going through this process of internal conversations without asking precisely why these agencies, as I call them, quangos, were created in the first instance. And number two, if after all this time we come to realize that it hasn't been working, whatever the case, who takes responsibility? I have a case of a Gongara boy who just came out of prison the other month for having been arraigned through courts and found to have lost public resources, and he went to jail. So who takes responsibility for these messes? You know, as Ibrahim says, as a matter of policy, not necessarily all opposition, Ibrahim, because some opposition parties may be a right-wing leaning, you know. But in progressive terms, social democratic political parties like UPS and others believe in big government meaning role of government in public services, but lean in from the perspective that you're saying. In any case, our first independence government, and even about the two government, where we even created a ministry for rehabilitation and ministry for supplies to address the then urgent crisis that we faced under Idi Amin. The government was still more than one-third what NRA guys have today. Why were these created? My opinion is that they were created deliberately in some cases to create jobs for particular individuals as quangos, and in many cases to continue to push for the agency of patronage. I think that it is urgent that we re-emerge these agencies, but my concern is whether or not under NRA there will be any difference, because the initial failures, the current failures, some of them actually, I agree both with Ibrahim and my good brother here, are not necessarily even about these agencies. It's basically about the death of government, where by and large no agency of government is allowed to operate independently, especially if it raises money. My good friend here has just talked about justifying an extension and continuation of an agency, in this case direct corporation as it were, simply because it makes profit. No, that is one of the arguments that was made for Uganda Commercial Bank, that it was making a loss. It was basically the idea to sell off these things. The fact that it's making profit does not necessarily mean that it cannot be run by a ministry. In which case then, if we don't trust that ministries can run some of these services, then we could as well abolish ministries. Oscar, in the Obote 1 and 2 governments, and perhaps a continuation of Idi Amin's, the Ministry of Works, had workshops, assembled motor vehicle engines for our public service agents, for our public service vehicles. What has happened to some of these things? It is basically the killing of public institutions. And I think we can have this conversation as long as we want, but unless and until NRA continues, unless we have a change of government and a change of direction, we're not going to see anything change majorly. In any case, anyway, these are matters that we should be discussing as a matter of policy, rather as a matter of policies, as manifesto conversations, that political parties like UPC would say that, look, in a future UPC government are going to look at public service reforms, and one of them will be, if you like, the mainstreaming of these agencies. In any case, again, as Ibrahim says, the problem really is possibly not even these agencies but patronage. Can you imagine the size of government we have today? Can you imagine what happens in President's office? Can you imagine the size of Parliament? Ibrahim, I would like to be able to join you there, but
we reduce if you are coming.
by making irrelevant. But I know, and I know that would come by making irrelevant some of the positions, some of the people who go down there as the legislators, and then they find the money too sweet, and they forget that the burden of responsibility for them is to represent the interests of the people.
Ivan, where does NIRA fall?
I opposed the creation of NIRA, but I was defeated.
Yeah, but I think NIRA was one of the ones that were first saved by Parliament. But for me, Oscar, I want to look at
go to the microphone.
I think that there is a unanimous agreement that government can do with a leaner, a frugal and more efficient administration. The question, though, is if you strip that argument of context, then you're more likely to make more mistakes than solve them. Because yes, there is need to create efficiency and have a leaner government, but there is also a context in which these agencies were formed. You see, Oscar, in the early 1990s, during the IMF World Bank structured adjustment programs, one of the conditions was that government needed to size down, to have a smaller government. That's what led to the laying off of many of the staff, the disbanding of the agencies, the Coffee Marketing Board and all these agencies, so that you have a leaner, more efficient government. The result, though, was that you had a loss of human capital, important human capital, because the salaries that they were giving were not competitive. And what the World Bank, and one of the things I criticize it with, is so they substituted an expanded government, an expansive government, with what today we know as the NGOs. You see, the NGO world is the creation of is partly significant the result of those IMF World Bank structured adjustment programs, because these agents now came to substitute government with the NGOs. So many of the people who were efficient or working in the government at the time ran to the private sector, went to the NGO. In fact, some of the founding members of Uganda's NGO world now were formerly in government, because NGOs were paying better, they were having bigger budgets, and then the government was sizing down, reducing salaries, and having not having sufficient incentives for the retention of important human capital. But then that also now created the window for the emergence of this of URA, for example, was created in 1992 from the Ministry of Finance. Then came these successive agencies as they emerged. These agencies, when they emerged on the scene, provided that efficiency and excellence in delivery of public service. But what the effect it had on the ministry on the Ministry of Public Service was that now you had the people who felt they were no longer very relevant to the government, or most of the work was being done by these agencies. So this is why when most of the corruption cases you see in these countries, you have mainstream public service people earning 1,800,000, 2 million. But when you go to audit their assets and the assets, they are in billion, they are worth billions of shillings. The result is that the pay in a public service is not competitive. So people find ways of substituting that income through unofficial corruption. So the agencies were solving that problem. We will pay you competitively, and then we'll demand due service.
Or as someone just says, if you have the right people, that's his word.
Exactly. So we will pay you competitively and then hold you accountable on what you're delivering as a result of that.
Sorry, Ivan, are you saying the agencies were addressing the issue of corruption and all low pay in public services? Is that how it works?
Partly they were bringing efficiency, and as a result, reduced corruption was as a result of that, because you have more scrutiny on agencies, more competent management.
But these public services were very efficient and they delivered, and there was no need for this.
Well, the public service that the NRM government inherited of the late 80s and early 90s was a haven of corruption.
Absolute nonsense. I know you were going there. No, please don't start on that. Thankfully, 90% of the listeners don't agree with you.
You have not done that, Paul, and I do not know why your chain specifically feels attacked when I talk about the corruption of the 1980s and 90s.
You are attacking PC.
Yes, which is on public record. So for me, I think the most prudent way to go about these mergers is they are critical agents. For example, you cannot say you merge URA and take it back to Ministry of Works. The reason URA emerged was URA, for example, and take it to the Ministry of Finance. The corruption I'm talking about, those customs borders were having of corruption. Customs before URA was emerged. People would get wealthy, insanely wealthy in just months of being employed in URA. The Honorable Semuju were covering at that time, I'm sure. No,
there was no URA under UPC.
Yeah, yes, exactly. So URA emerged to correct some of those.
UPC collected taxes and built the foundations that you guys have destroyed.
But now, so there are agencies like URA. I agree that ministries like agencies like UNRWA are also doing a good job. But there are also agencies like UWA, Uganda Wildlife Resources, that are generating their own money. There are many other agencies that are generating their own money and that are no longer dependent on government funding. So for me, my argument would be that you look at agencies that are like Keith and Kin of some agencies and merge those ones. For example, you had the Uganda Wildlife Conservation Education Center and Uganda Wildlife Authority independently. Really, when you think about it, those two can be merged and made one entity. They are all dealing with the wildlife conservation. Those can be merged.
They were merged.
Exactly. Those, for example, are merged. You have National Environment Management Authority. You have National Uganda Meteorological Authority. They are both dealing with environment, weather, things that are so really related. Those can be merged. You have now things like the Uganda Warehouse Receipt System Authority. If you ask any ordinary Ugandan, if you did a poll and asked, I'm sure 99%
Don't
of
ask
Ugandan.
Ugandan. Even me, I didn't know what it means.
What it does,
So I kept asking.
You're doing well because even I don't know.
Exactly.
What of
So
tri-
99%.
Did you find out?
What of the
Yes.
trypanosomiasis?
So you have 99% of the
When it
people
came
in the
for
country.
rationalization is when I tried to find out what was it doing.
So you realize 99% of the people do not know what it is doing, what it is doing.
And the other one, they try.
Trypanosomiasis. What was it? You know that word is
Now
not
imagine
easy
that
to.
is the disease, trypanosomiasis.
Nobody.
Yeah. It's no longer there.
Exactly. So you had many of these authorities and agencies that were really not really doing anything. If they were doing it, because you can't be so efficient and doing, and nobody knows about you. What exactly are you doing? Are you
Or rural electrification.
rural was the
That
first
one
that
was rationalized.
was rationalized. That one, for example, my argument is it could have been imagined with the Uganda Rural Electrification Agency, Uganda Electricity Distribution Company Limited. Those also could have been managed. They are all dealing with the distribution and of electricity. One is focusing on rural areas, the other is focusing on the national grid. So what is different between rural areas and the national grid? You can have one agency for that. So for me, I think my argument is that there should be the baby should not be thrown out with the bathwater. There can be like scrutiny, keen scrutiny of
You
agencies
have
that can be managed.
an
and
Abdul
those that cannot,
Semugeni sends a message saying, UNRWA at Chambogo has more than 150 grounded double cabin pickups that have not been sold to the public. So is that an example of, if you have a look at what they're doing and what they're
I
not
think
doing,
for me
and
the
how they're not
argument
saving?
can be before the creation of this agency, what was the status quo of the parent ministry on that specific mandate? On the mandate, what was the performance of the parent ministry on the mandate of that that the current authority or agency is handling? If the realization is that there was actually total dysfunction, nothing was moving, then that agency deserves to exist.
No, why?
But because
you make the ministry work.
yeah, but reforming the civil service use, as Honorable Semuju know, that it is not a stroke of a
So
pen.
who has informed the passport and driving permit?
You see, that is a specific component. It is like driving permit is like passport. The national ID you were talking about, the idea to start that have a national identity as an identity card was
register.
first started in 2001. It never took off until 2014 when the General Ronda muzzled his way, forced his way using his clout as a retired
But is it doing all the work? Registering births, registering deaths?
Yes, it's now it is now being given a mandate of registering marriages also.
Yeah.
So
But-
now over the
but
years
it is
you
not
have-
in charge of a census.
No. Census is now Lupus, Uganda Bureau of Statistics. There are areas of convergence. Because, for example, the NIRA database can also be used by the Electoral Commission in, for example, in the electoral exercise. And this is why now birth registration, births and deaths are very important, because now they clean a national database, and then over time, you have, once you are born, you are immediately entered into the system.
Yeah.
For example, now a child that is immediately you're born, you cannot get a birth certificate before you acquire a national identification number. So that means that every child that is born is issued a national identification number. You entered into the national. No, it actually does. It actually does. You, Semuju, the other day. You, Semuju, the other day are the one who was talking about. This Hoya Oscar the other day was asking about registration of learners. We went to they immediately executed the exercise. Many of the people who complain about the services of NIRA are some who have not actually tried it. I am telling you, if you have a baby, you go and ask for a birth certificate. You will first be given a name and then given a
I'm actually delighted. I'm actually delighted that NIRA bought that from us. In 2005, I deliberately issued a press statement in a press conference. I say that the future UPC government would ensure that the registration of births and indeed registration of deaths
would be UPC do it.
No, of course we did it before. I'm saying if UPC government will make sure that registration of births and registration of deaths were compulsory. But just to contextualize, because there's a national debate rather than partisan debate. The reason why it's important, it also pushes the idea that people in medical facilities, Ugandans just don't die anyhow. Anybody who has got responsibility for anybody's life must take responsibility.
Yes, exactly.
Meaning that you trust even a dubious nurse or a dubious medical facility. That was part of the background. But anyway,
But
yes.
also, death certificates, for example, now are helping with this fraud of inheritance. So fix those issues on inheritance, wrangles, and all of
You see, you got me wrong. I didn't say that NIDA is not doing well. I've visited their offices. I visited Uganda Road before when the traffic was huge. And recently, they are doing very well. All I said is that there are no incentives to register all the birth in Uganda. People are being born in banana plantations who will not walk to register.
I am telling you now,
because there's nothing you are giving in return.
So that's an infrastructure question.
Now they are incentives.
Because in Europe, why people register their benefits that they give to children, for you give them zero.
No,
so you go to a banana plantation, finish birth, and then walk to go and register for what?
Now, you know, Oscar, NIRA was mooting the idea of having children. So if you're going to a health facility, you present your ID and get a service. Now, people, the agencies, UNICEF and the World Bank, and people were saying that is exclusive. That's excluding a vast majority of the public, because the idea was that if you don't have a national ID, then you immediately then you register for a birth certificate. Then are entered into the national database, so that it's like now most of the adult Ugandans, if you're to get a service in a bank, a SIM card, or to replace your SIM card, you need a national ID. So there is an incentive for you to actually get that national ID. Now it is going to babies. Once you cannot get a birth certificate before you register and get a national identity card number. Once you get a NIN, that means you have entered the national database. And once you clock 16 years of age, then you will come and get a physical card. And now that also tracks your parents, so it means that your data is connected to your parents and your origin. So there is a genealogy, there is a record. If somebody says Ivan Rugamba and they put it into the system, you can who their parents are. And so progressively the national database is coming into force, and this is why some of those agencies remain important.
We're going to stop for a break. Moses Biarohanga tells MP Katabazi, how do you attribute the revenue in the dairy sector to the DDA? In particular, which revenue are you talking about? Is it tax revenue or export earning? And then on X, formerly Twitter, Nabimara Charles says, I find Honorable Katabazi's argument lame to say that rationalizing UCDA would mean doing away with research. Does he mean that research can be done at the ministry?
Capital Gang on 91.3 Capital FM. We're the Capital Gang on 91.3 Capital FM.
Welcome back from the break. Honorable Katabazi, you are the one in the news. Honorable Katabazi does not know what he's talking about. How can he attribute coffee funding to another organization? But just before you come back, because you're an MP, let's start with the journalist here, who may say what Katabazi and Semuju won't say. So
but there's something
you're coming back onto the microphone. So this MP is taking a bribe. Word on the ground is Semuju and Katabazi involved, or Semuju has stood firm, so an indication that maybe he has not eaten anything against pardon, not what? Not anything yet.
Oscar, why
let me also say thank you, Star Cafe. Honorable Katabazi, you can partake in. They are all safe. No need to carry your chapati in the jacket.
The government is
this is the UPC environment. Don't you worry.
There is someone who is sipping coffee like the big man. Must be Joseph.
For the record, it's actually tea. But it's fine.
Honorable,
yes.
Sorry.
Honorable Semuju.
Honorable Semuju and Honorable Katabazi have been cagey on that particular debate of whether the honorable members of parliament have taken bribe or not. While I'm gathering information for reporting on this particular story, there are people whom I've talked to off the record, and they have been very categorical, saying there are more personal fights in these mergers than the real substance of it. That indeed, if it were about rationalizing and reducing on the expenditure, the wage bill and stuff, then you wouldn't be having another which I've called an invasion of vice RDCs, RDCs in the tune of their thousands. Because then they are adding, it's like digging a new hole to cover an old one. Then you haven't done anything.
A new one.
Yes, you won't cover the new one. The new one will remain, but you will cover the old one.
So you have done something actually.
But you remain with holes anyway. If your idea is to remove holes, then you've done nothing. What I've heard from the words in the corridors is that yes, there is certainly money that has exchanged hands, and these are people who are talking to you. Some of them within the agencies, and some of them are opponents within the agencies. This one's fighting this one, and they are going to sit you down and say, okay, here we have personal fights, and this one is fighting me because of this and this, and I'm fighting them because of how I'm defending myself. And when it comes to the angle of the MPs who are supposed to make laws, then whichever side the fights are, they take interest in a number of MPs and call them and say, man, as you speak about this, please, can you have me saved? Can you save my face? I saw many, I have about 4 or 5 agencies that have been rejected, have been listed in the speculation of corruption, and that was UNRWA, that was this diary development.
Kajina cannot give you money.
There has been.
Did you hear what somebody is saying? Kajina cannot give you money.
I don't know. So I don't know whether honorable. I don't know whether. So all these prompted they prompted the Speaker of Parliament to come out in the open to say, no, none of my MPs has taken a bribe. I don't know how she's able to track the MPs to that personal level that the Honorable Semuju here is very sure that even if he asked money from Kajina will not give him money. But probably he also knows people who can give him money. And that is just
true. Ivan, before you come on, Honorable,
yes.
A message here on Twitter, on X, from someone who calls himself Villager, says UCC and NITA Uganda both regulate ICT sector, but MPs, including Katuntu, vehemently spiritedly fought to keep it. Why?
I don't know. Does NITA? I don't think NITA regulates the ICT sector. I think NITA is responsible for the infrastructure for the national ICT infrastructure. UCC is specifically for regulation. So I think the mandates are sort of different.
UCC has a rural electrification fund. A rural communication fund. They are also involved in infrastructure.
On ICT infrastructure.
That's a duplication.
Now I don't know about the
that is a duplication.
And then you have a ministry as well.
The Ministry of ICT. Yes. So you see, for me, my argument is that these are the conversations they should have had in Parliament.
No, because the aspect with the originators where you are.
Yeah, okay.
They should have been the ones bringing.
So because it is called rationalization of government agency. Rationalization means has an aspect of debate the merits and the demerits of the existence of an agency.
But
so that
this,
I feel like
observer story that annoyed the speaker was that maybe they were not exchanging cash, but by MPs' trips and so on and so forth. Would that be counted as corruption?
But MPs, Oscar, especially MPs from rural areas, their interaction with government departments is not necessarily for financial benefit. As I speak to you now, they are distributing maize seeds. I don't pick them because people in my constituency don't grow them. My constituency is Oscar's village. But MPs representing rural constituencies go and
we
pick
do.
maize and go and distribute.
Yeah.
They also pick coffee seedlings. They pick. So their interaction, they are the ones who are.
Not anymore.
The last time Minister of Works was launching a road, Namgongo to Nsas Road, I told the technocrats there that for me, I am not going to rob you. Your arcades are here, you all sleep here. If you don't do the road, it's up to you. And I have never robbed anyone that to come and do a road in Ichira, but they will come and do them because that's where they stay. But the MPs from rural areas, you'll find them at Unura.
Is in a bad way. Maybe.
Yeah, they are going to do some roads.
Yeah.
But I don't want to take credit that I am robbing. No, I don't do that.
Yeah.
But MPs, especially from rural areas, will go to these agencies who want a road done here. So the agencies that have responded to robbing by MPs will certainly be saved. It's not just necessarily that MPs have been given
You're
money.
taken. Okay.
But there are MPs who, and majority of MPs do go there. I don't, because in my constituency things will be done, you like it or not.
Honorable Katawaz, have you
It's going to be done.
are you one of the MPs that have eaten money? From the agencies?
No, not
That's
at
why,
all.
that's why you are arguing for some.
No.
And some people are saying you
First
are
of all,
arguing wrongly.
Yeah, first of all, I would like to thank Mr. Biaruhanga Moses. I know him very well. I never talked about the dairy sector because I'm not so knowledgeable
Today you
about
have, but in
Today.
Parliament, you
Yes. No, but my friend here, I think maybe he mistaken the voice. But I don't think I speak like my brother Derek here. But I talked about coffee. And it's coffee that I can defend. You know, I think for friends, I see some of you who are married here. You know, there is a strategy. He's married. They say if you had an issue with your wife, you again don't refuse to eat the dinner she has prepared. What I'm trying to say is, if there is an issue, it's true. By the way, Honorable Semuju, I did not say that I do not support rationalization, but I said some of these agencies are better than the ministries because of the issue you talked about, that most of the ministers, no, because the appointing authority of the minister, he's one, and he said for him he has his fishermen. Okay, so now if you have no, you cannot teach a fisherman how to take care of chicken or anything else. If they don't know, they don't know. In fact, that's one of the things when you read about a certain man called Lee Kuan Yew, how he brought up Singapore. He had three qualities. He looked at three things: meritocracy. Putting somebody in a place where you put somebody on merit. Like if I was the president, I would put Honorable Semuju Minister of Information, because he's a very good. No, because you'll be doing something you know best. That's what I'm trying to bring up. But these are people who are ignorant about the ministries they are put in. So at times, it's better for some of the agencies like UCDA, which affect people directly, their incomes, to be really saved, which are run by professionals, though not all of them. Because when I have not checked, but I'm looking at the results. It's a little bit. It's not very good, but better. And in fact, for Buganda government, for your information, my big brother and the senior, Buganda government's stand was to save UCDA, because UCDA has helped Buganda government to establish and give out all those coffee seedlings you've talked about.
By the way, Moses also told you that you are wrong on UCDA, that research is undertaken by NARO, not UCDA.
No, but even under UCDA there is research. I think he could get more information from there. Though, no. His point, Moses' issue is the research could be done in the ministry. Okay? I think that's what he was talking about. And I said the ministry is like a fire. Okay? And this is a frying pan. So we have two options which are not the best, but we have to choose one which can help our people as we wait for a robust overhaul of the entire system, because we have the cooperative movement. What happened? The cooperatives and unions, they were very good because they made the local wananchi investors, other than the investors we have today in quotes. But there, when you are part of that union, you are the investor yourself in your small way. So that is a system which has been abolished. For us, when we have the power, I think that those are some of the things we should look at. Stabilization fund, it's a crime nowadays when there is a lot of, you buy these seeds, maize seeds at 25,000 a kilo, and then when you have the harvest, you are selling a kilo at 500 shillings. Which mathematics is that? So it's about a bigger picture. So people should not misquote me, but I'm working with, I'm just making a cut according to the shape of the head. At the moment, we are in a troubled world, but we need to be moving. Whether we are crawling or, they say you should be moving, whether you are crawling or whatever it is. So that's why.
That aside, are there any MPs who are taking kitu kidogo?
Now, I don't know. There is one fact.
Do you remember what the Honorable Dongoto said? He made an allegation, I think, about MPs, and he was taken to the disciplinary committee. And his defense was that when people are offering bribes, do they issue a receipt? So you're asking him for evidence, do they issue a receipt?
So, Oscar, about that, I cannot be certain, but one thing I know, there are some things when we are maybe at committee stage, you agree on something, and then the stand changes when you reach plenary. I don't know what causes that. But when you are at the committee level, so you find that some MPs, you've agreed on one thing. This one, the report is like this. And then all of a sudden, even the people who are there is even one time, one colleague from the same committee said, procedure. I think so-and-so is talking about this because he was not there in the committee. But very well, knowing that I was there. But when I reached the canteen, I asked him, man, what happened? He said, now you see, you must understand how things run here. So that one, I know there could be. I don't have any facts on me. And my senior said, those guys don't issue receipts. So you will not know. But the reactions can tell.
Yes,
but with me, I'm not defending UCDA because UCDA gave me money. I'm getting it from the bottom of my heart that at least we should save it in order to save the coffee industry. It may not be doing very well, like in terms of numbers, because our target is to have 20 million bags, and we are only on 8. And so if you are seeing government again pushing this, they've not paid these people who supply the seedlings. They've not, So I cannot fight something like this which helps. If there is an organization to do with gold, for example, that one I would fight for it to be mainstream, because gold is the highest forex earner. Actually, it earns that's more than what coffee does, but there are only 7 companies. Yeah? No, but we have gold here. You should agree. Yes. Actually, our resource envelope wouldn't be suffering.
Here. You see, the amount of money that we get from gold originating from Uganda gives you 0 point something. The rest is not from Uganda. It's just in transit.
There is gold in Busia. There is gold in Kasanda. There is a lot of gold on level 7.
There's a very bad story about gold actually in Karamoja, where gold lightning allegedly struck. Gold started oozing out. Locals have been pushed out, and all of a sudden, some government person, I think a minister, went in and said no, they were going through a licensing process, and by the following day, the licensing issue has got a date of the day of the arrival of the government person, allegedly.
Why wasn't the UPC government able to discover this gold, Joseph?
No,
you're talking like we said, of course we did, but I mean, stop being diversionary.
Yes.
No, it's actually very serious. It's a very serious issue. Actually,
Let's come back to the topic. Joseph.
Yes.
Thank you, Honorable Katawazi. First, you have some people. There's James Wabbs on X. Joseph Otieno is very obsessed with UPC, which made Ugandans cry like nothing. Then you have Dr. Namara is telling you the president as CEO is allowed by the constitution to make administrative units and decisions. It's really futile to think Otieno will ever see any good in NRM. He's always promoting Obote. But Joseph, the MPs receiving money, it is not new. The parliamentary exhibition recently said some MPs received, was it 40 million? They published that information here on X just weeks ago. Then there's a time Semujo had received money. He had first refused to take it back. Eventually, there was one he said you shall not take back.
No.
Then eventually that one he took it back. Then
Oscar, you need these things are different.
No, I mean
the money we are given to us during COVID was money given to every single MP. And at that time I said I am not returning it. I am going to give people to my constituency who are suffering. But we were forced to return it, and I did. Yeah. But when you say you were giving, it's as if I was a...
I was giving examples of that really MPs.
This money was put in a budget. The one you're talking about, I don't know, but
but there are other monies that you know about that MPs receive, that NRM MPs receive, and you've the most recent was 40 million. So when someone comes up and says that MPs may have received money about the mergers, maybe it would not be surprising.
200.
No, and it's just unfortunate because
paid 200 to NRM.
In the course of my submission,
200 million.
Yes.
I think Ibrahim should also listen, because Ibrahim was a minor during the last UPC administration, but granted is a journalist. But the loudest person here is
two relatives, an uncle and a cousin, together with a minibus they were driving. And they were taken by your soldiers. We've never seen them.
The UNLA soldiers were not my soldiers. In fact, thankfully, nobody in my family was from UNLA. But number two, the youngest person and the loudest person here is the young Mr. Rugamba Ivan. And so we go through major hearsays.
He's only second to you. So.
Major hearsays and propaganda. I think this debate is more important than we are giving traction to it. Although I was in another conversation elsewhere, a media conversation, where a fellow panelist thought maybe the blame is you guys in the media because it's really a diversionary issue. No, I think it's a conversation we must have. And it's a conversation we must have because this is unprecedented, what has happened under NRA, whether we're talking about the topic we had earlier, or in this case, the question of alleged corruption and exchange of hands. The amount of money that we lose as a public to corruption is huge. The fact that the Legislative Assembly should actually really be the liberators of the people on behalf of the people, trying to check the other agencies, in this case the executive, the presidency, and the judiciary, and that we can assume and talk about members of parliament receiving money. It was completely unheard of, and it was an impossibility under UPC administration. Completely an impossibility under UPC administration. Now, number two, of course, I think I'll respond to the question of Ibrahim's. Ibrahim, apart from actually me pushing for the reforms, including on the compulsory registration of deaths and births, one of the things I was talking about side by side in that press conference, and I think Capto covered that very well at the time, was a conversation around National Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And part of why I was pushing for that is to have people like the Ivans, accept the realities of today and the realities of the past, so that we genuinely know what happened. The UPC administration was surrounded by a bunch of election losers in Luweero who came and criminalized government later. But before that, they made it impossible for Kampala particularly to operate. Now, particularly the people in Buganda sub-region, have got a right to be a little bit confused, and in many cases are victims. But every other time I'll give Ibrahim. I'll give
killed our people.
Ibrahim. I'll give you some space. You are a journalist, and the kind of conversation you're having. If we take this to northern Uganda, if we take it even to the east in Nagongera, and we tell you the cases of who and how many people died, my own opinion is this: that we need to have a genuine national truth and reconciliation commission where we're able to debate who killed who during the UPC administrations and who killed who under NRM. In an amazing way, we are trying to whitewash, and I know how the media, particularly in contemporary last 30 years times,
to debate UPC.
I'm answering.
Yeah,
I know you're a journalist, but you're not moderating. You're not moderating for today.
I need to be guided.
I think because these conversations cloud, and Museveni uses these things to continue to blackmail people. I'm trying to say that whatever is happening today wouldn't and should not have happened under the UPC administration, whether we're discussing corruption in public spaces or indeed corruption by legislators. It's actually a shameful thing. And considering how, including my road down in Chira, I have to go chuku, just down here after Ntinda, the failure of public services under NRA. Is extraordinary. Part of the conversation we're having, is even as of today, Oscar, there's a continued demonstration, basically just for tamaking of Nagongera Road in Tororo. So the shambles that we are facing by this organization, and then you wonder, is it UNRWA, is it Minister of Works or Minister of Transport? Nagongera had tarmac, under Minister of Transport. It doesn't have tarmac today. So I just genuinely think that citizens need to wake up and become much more considered, meaning including people who are victims of maybe human rights abuses under this regime or indeed any previous human rights abuses. People should take up the role of active citizenship. We need to demand from legislators to take accountability and responsibility. And one of the reasons why legislators are getting away with it, I told at the beginning, these conversations would have been and should have been manifesto conversations by political parties, that when we come into government, this is what we're going to do. We're going to mainstream, and review, do public sector reforms. Imagine Museveni saying that they're going to save 1 billion Uganda shillings as a result of this reform. 1 trillion. But Museveni does not talk about the fact that his regime loses 10 billion under corruption, because this is part of the conversation we are having. Okay. The more we did that, Oscar, just a quick one.
Yes.
And the member of parliament for Nagongera would have responsibility to the citizens of Nagongera. And Nagongera people would know how that member of parliament voted. And so if he started voting in tongues like my brother from Masaka is saying, they will know that, well, the result is he's likely to lose, or it is going to be very difficult for him to return to Masaka over that weekend.
Just to close out, Ivan, a comment from you, and then I'll ask Honorable Katabas to. But you see, you also have. But Ivan, I wanted to put to you that that saving 1 trillion on one side and then appointing so many RDCs, it's kind of defeatist.
I agree. Although you see, the conversation on RDCs has long been vulgarized. First, I know that they do. When you go to the ground, in fact, I think that the RDC, the office of the RDC in a country, in local government, is the most expansive. It almost touches on every aspect of local administration in the district.
Because it has nothing to do, so it does everything.
So, if you go by practically what the RDC does in the rural areas, and you factor in now the aspect of adding them two assistants or an assistant per district, because the office of the RDC had RDC and the deputy. Now they are adding it. Is it two assistants? two assistants.
You should be the one telling.
Yes.
Now, if you look at the scope and the extent of the work and that they do in the district, you will actually find some reasonable understanding on why it is necessary to beef up the manpower. Now the conversation can be had.
We will discuss that another day on their usefulness, and a lot of people would disagree.
Because in terms of intervening, whether it is the land wrangles, whether it is what, because look,
the aspect of money from the mergers and then appointing RDCs.
You see, if you discuss piecemeal, if you discuss every aspect in piecemeal, then you will not arrive at a solution. Like I said, the conversation on rationalization is important. But what is not happening though now, as we merge these agencies, is that actual rationalization is not happening. In what I'm saying is, what the conversation on justification of each of how should be retained, who should be merged, is actually not happening. Like Honorable Semuju has said, or the Honorable Katabazi, people agree in committee meetings. The next day they come with a whole new conversation,
new language,
or others are voting this conversation. Because I follow Parliament Watch, which reports daily on the debate as they are happening. This conversation on, for example, the connection between this agency and this, and these debates are not happening in Parliament, and I think that is what the public has been denied in this debate.
Honorable Semuju, you had a comment to make before I asked Honorable Katabazi.
I said this on TV. Let me repeat it. Kenya is almost undergoing a similar exercise. They are guided by two principles.
They kind of had it with the reduction of ministries.
They keep doing that, They did a calculation and came to the conclusion that they are spending nearly 35% of their revenue on the wage bill, and said this must reduce. So the victims are not predetermined. If it is RDCs, if it is ministries, if it is what, then the technocrats will go and study. But the principle is that we must reduce the wage bill by so much. But two, President Ruto said the policy of Kenya was to employ 70% technical, 30% support staff. And he said people had changed it along with it and said we need to go back to it. So it's the same argument I made yesterday. You see, Ivan, the point you asked Oscar, he looks at the assistant RDC, he thinks one person is the addition. Every RDC has a vehicle. He has a driver, he has a soldier, he has a secretary. So one RDC goes into office together with three people the same day, and the vehicle and the fuel and so on and so forth. So that's this point, and it's the last point I want to make, Oscar, which you earlier hinted on. Mr. Museveni himself has withdrawn confidence in ministries. And he said the reason he started initiatives, offices, it is because he thinks ministries are not working. Institutions of government are not working. So he has his own personal institutions under his residence. The Electoral Commission, finally, I've also said this before, they've done a strategic plan for 2 years. They think at the next election, Uganda will elect 3.3 million leaders at a cost of 2.4 trillion. That's why Parliament, I mean, look at local government. You have councillors, 400,000. People with disability.
For me, the local government does not do much.
You are now spending up more than 2 trillion on payment.
Honorable Katabazi, close out.
Just one line, Oscar.
Close out. No. Let's you finish it somewhere.
Oscar, thank you so much. I'm being privileged to be here for my maiden appearance.
On mergers and parliamentarians, did you follow that discussion on parliamentary exhibition that was on a little while ago?
I wouldn't love to go there.
You wouldn't love to go.
No, I don't want to. I don't want to discuss.
Because the speaker was very annoyed with Observer newspaper, but on the other one, she said she does not respond to what was it? Rumor mongering.
Now, I would really love to say that basically, I don't, as I've told you about the exhibition, I wouldn't love to go there.
And about the bribe, you also don't want to go there.
No,
So
I already talked about it. Of course, if there is evidence somebody has taken a bribe, it should be brought to book. That one, definitely, I don't support any wrongdoing. Now, going back to the topics we've had today.
You just final word on mergers, and then because we're going to census.
I definitely, I support mainstreaming of some, not all. Now, those that I would love to be saved are those that have been performing well. I gave an example of UCDA because it supports the private sector so much. Because the private sector is the one that supports the public sector, which is very extravagant in Uganda. You see, Uganda, we have 82 ministers. When 4 countries, Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda combined, they have 86. And then MPs, When you combine those 4 countries, they have 1,011, but Uganda, we already have 540. So, and then so many administrative units, you'll find that even some villages are becoming constituencies, and it happens in some regions, not here, because you see my brother here represents so many people.
Ivan, is that what you mean? Not discussing piecemeal, because he's widening the discussion on more mergers. Let's stop for a break, and after the break, we'll go to the upcoming census.
The Capital Gang on 91.3 Capital FM. The Capital Gang on 91.3 Capital FM.
Welcome back from the break. This is the Capital Gang, a big discussion on mergers and increased salaries and increased costs. Anyway, let's start with journalist Mr. Wandera. Are we ready for the census?
There has been.
Honorable Semunjo, I hope you are aware that
on 9th May. 9th May.
9th, don't move out.
So,
go on.
You are reporting, Honorable Semunjo, on red.
Derek, go on.
I can't find you.
I have only your microphone on, so
thank you.
Are we ready?
There has been a spirited effort by the Uganda Bureau of Statistics, which is mandated with collecting data and census, in trying to sensitize the public about the upcoming census. I think I don't quite recall when it last happened, but I know there has been a lot of back and forth. This date has been pushed. It was supposed to have happened last year in August, but it has been pushed up to this year in May, and particularly it has been budgetary allocations, the struggles of finances within the government and things like that. But I think they've broken the ceiling. Now they are going to have it. It's about 13 days away. And it, they say we are ready. I don't know. I have moved from one door to another in my neighborhood, just trying to understand whether these people are actually going to keep home on the census night. But it's unfortunate. Probably in these 13 days, in these 13 days, there is a lot that needs to be happen. There is a lot that needs to happen in terms of extending as much information as possible to the people. I know there are adverts, there are media engagements that are happening. I don't know how intense they are, because when I move around, it almost seems like I'm the only one who is aware that there is census that's going to be happening in 13 days from now. So I would really think that UBOS needs to put in extra energy, especially in these last days, for me to be able to answer that question. As a journalist, I move around trying to gather information and trying to see the impact of government programs on ground. But to be honest, I think there needs to be a little more effort to be done.
Okay. Ivan, are we ready for the census?
I think the census is one of those national activities that people actually do really comply with whenever it's happened. I think the thing to debate about is whether UBOS has been given the sufficient resources, or if it has the sufficient manpower and resources to reach every nook and cranny of the country and access every family and be able to document this data. Because Oscar, the census results and the results in the National Demographic and Health Survey are the results on which national planning is based or is founded. It is on the basis of that data that the National Planning Authority does its estimates. It is on that basis that the National Development Planning under Vision 2040 is based, because you cannot, if you to have accurate interventions to achieve accurate results, then you must know the number of people, their circumstances, their the demographic dynamics, and the various the various aspects that come together to constitute the identity, the national identity and national identity. So I think UBOS previously has been doing a good job. I think it's one of those agencies or those activities that have not previously been riddled with any sort of like scandal or any shortfall. So I want to give them the benefit of doubt and to hope and that they will carry out a good job, especially because we are in the last decade of Vision 20. We are in the second last decade of Vision 2040. 2025 will mark the end of the third National Development Plan. So as we go into the fourth national, we will debate that when we are debating the implementation of Vision 2040. So as we cross into the fourth National Development Plan towards the overall Vision 2040, we will need to have accurate data to make accurate predictions, and then ask government to design specific interventions that match the demographic identity and of the people.
So Joseph, in some ways, Ivan has spelled out the purposes of a census. You, for once, you're going to agree with him. Pardon?
He will tell you how they are doing it under UPC.
So you don't know. I've been anxiously waiting for a possibility of recruiting you not only to UPC, but ensuring that you possibly become my next spokesperson as president. And I think we would do a fantastic job, including saying that, well, a future UPC government would ensure that in the course of carrying out the next census, that we use local government structures to carry out this exercise, so that becomes less expensive. But by and large, in principle, of course, yes, Ivan is right. It's a commonsensical thing. We need to be able to know and to know in order to plan. Except I don't know what census information of 2014, when the last time we had a census. 14. What it was used for. The early conversation tells you that, well, we play figures, we fudge figures, and I'm not quite sure whether there is any.
Who forges figures?
NRM.
I said we fudge figures.
In fact, all data. If you check World Bank and all, Uganda has one of the most reliable and credible data.
NRM forges figure.
That cannot be a conversation.
They just said
that Semujuk alleges that NRM forges.
So you want examples? I begin.
No, there must be a verifiable standard.
So I begin.
Or at least yes.
Joseph is on microphone. Yes.
You know the way NRM can heckle. You guys, you've been heckling us for the last 40 years without results. Anyway. I think
Ivan makes a good point. That this information is available.
I simply say it is an extremely important, and it has to be done well, but also it has to be done efficiently and in a cost-effective way. And that whatever we do with the information,
middle income status. That's what they were saying.
That would be a statement from State House. No, I think I would urge Ugandans to cooperate and to make sure that we responsibly do these things and make sure that's accurate, and that the two legislators flanking me ensure that whatever process does take place, that is
also going to be counted.
No, I'm saying eventually your job is to carry out the oversight stuff. You know, that the information that comes to Parliament, we don't have to discuss how much MPs get irregularly, but rather how much goes into Nagongera dispensary, Toro Hospital, Chinoni and Itojo Hospital that we built, and make sure that it is serving the purposes and fit for purpose for the next citizens of the next census.
Honorable Katabazi, how is Kalungu ready for the census?
Yeah, of course, like the saying goes, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And one of the things which you need in planning is data. So it's very important, and I urge every Ugandan to really turn out that day and be counted. I was only worried for some who have 2 homes or 3 homes, how they will do it, because they will ask how many. No, when I was I'm not talking about you, but
so you create an impression. that polygamous families,
No.
they count you where you are.
They will count you where you'll have stayed that night anyway. No problem. It was just I was trying to pull when I was saying some Jews leg, but it's okay. So it's an important thing, but we are minding so much about the people who receive the data. We want they do like recently NRM said they have 18 million members.
Halfway registration, by the way.
Because it is the same regime that is in power. So I hope this time they don't fake any data, because we've been known.
They have fixed data.
Yes, it's now.
Oscar, you have to challenge some of it.
Everything.
You can't say that we force the government forges the government
keep quiet.
I don't know how the rules of procedure here work, but I think nobody interrupted you when you were presenting. So we're like trying to. You see, what we need is sanity.
Once you make an accusation, be sure that he will come back.
Yeah.
and yes, him being outnumbered, it is only fair that he comes back.
Okay. Yeah. So what I was trying to say is for these people to be real.
He's outnumbered.
How?
3 members of the opposition.
No, there is no organization in Uganda called opposition. This is UPC.
That is
NRM.
That is
I am Nana Line.
Is FDC.
As of now, you are still FDC.
I am FDC. Yes.
So data is very important, and I urge every Ugandan to go out there and be counted, because we need it. But those who are handling the data should really be exact, so that it helps us, so that we don't fake stuff. Recently, the Prime Minister said, Uganda is already in the middle income status. And it was a very horrible thing when the World Bank, the figures now were showing, it's not yet. So the faking, we actually don't need that kind of, yes, because we are going to have issues. And that's a very important
Honorable Semoju,
activity.
On the census, how ready are we? Is my village
but Oscar, you're asking a wrong question.
You are now joining Ivan to choose your own questions.
I am not the one who is going to count. My role in all this is to be counted. Whether I am ready or not, for me, I am waiting to be counted. But I have seen the Bureau of Statistics lately trying to do a lot of publicity. They have met committees of parliament. I saw them, I think, meeting local government. We will judge them by the level of deployment and data. The only problem I have had in the past is how the government works. NIDA, for mass enrollment, had deployed people almost at every polling station. Of course, they withdrew them. Now they are looking for money to redeploy them. For me, at that time, I thought that we needed to do all these things together. You deploy people for mass enrollment, they do the census, so that you don't spend, initially, UBOS wanted 700 billion. I don't know how much eventually, I need to check, they have spent. But I think if people are going to be counted, will be there. The ordinary people who are hand to mouth, locking them in one place is not going to be possible. Certainly, except if they are going to be roadblocks like they were during COVID. But but because this information is correct, in fact, for me, in the future, I think we need to be relying more on registration of persons, death, because that data, if you can master it, it can be more accurate than the census itself. If there are incentives to get people, and then you leave the Bureau of Statistics to be doing surveys and maybe
or to collect from NIDA.
No, once you have a system that collects all the information, because the other day when we were discussing agriculture, government was supposed to have set up what they called a single spine to be present almost parish to village, so that information about production is picked from villages and loaded on one system for everybody to pick, which system they haven't because of personnel. So this is one of, yes, it will give us a basis, but periodically Uganda doesn't have reliable information. We just rely on surveys. Because if you ask Ivan how many people have died this year, he doesn't know. The births, we are also speculating. So the other agencies of government that are supposed to be collecting information regularly will need to do a lot of work, other than one census that is going to come in 10 years. But as a person, I am waiting to be counted.
Yeah. Okay, Ivan, you wanted to add on just a little bit?
No, I just wanted to say that is actually the reason why like birth and death registrations are now being mandatory, because cleaning a national database is not a one event or 1 year thing, because every minute people are being born, people are dying, so that update is a continuous.
So you count, and then Ivan gives birth 2 days after.
It's a continuous exercise.
Wow.
But once it is standard, you are able to know that at least in this period there are almost very perfect estimates to know that, because at least you will make an allowance of 1 or 2 years, but you'll be sure that you have
stop relying on estimates. I don't think if you went to UK, they will tell you that they're estimating their population. They know everybody.
No, they cannot say that. Now you go to an agency in the UK and they say, oh, now we have this exact
they
number.
Will, because every birth is registered.
They can tell you up to yesterday.
Yes,
but
okay.
yes.
But for you to
and
15 years ago.
and that is what the National Register will do also. Up to tomorrow, yesterday.
Thank you, gentlemen. We have a lady in studio on a good news campaign. Penina Namirembe Nantume, a journalist, but she's a lupus warrior. Wants to talk about Lupus Day. And lupus, we are going to learn a few more things. Lupus is an inflammatory disease. It's an inflammatory disease caused when the immune system attacks its own tissues. So welcome to the Capital Gang.
Thank you so much.
Penina Nantume Namirembe.
Thank you so much. But my name is Nantume Penina Namirembe, in that order.
Don't worry, you're speaking to a teacher of English who knows about a first name. So unless you tell me Nantume is your first name, but that's a discussion.
I have had problems, by the way, with people.
You can decide, but I know that your first name is Ibra.
No, it is not. Actually, each time I've been asked to put the first name, I put Semuju, because I must choose which one is first.
Yeah. Sometimes I keep saying you need to go to good schools.
The good schools cannot make for me.
But
the old schools, Mwiri, the future.
Yes. Okay. But you could say that you want to be called Nantume.
Yeah,
yes.
I want to be called Nantume.
So, Nantume, when is Lupus Day to begin with?
Lupus Day is 10th May worldwide. It's celebrated 10th May.
It's celebrated 10th May, and what happens when you're celebrating?
10th May is when, because we are in a country, let me say Uganda, we're in a country where people don't even know lupus. When you mentioned it, everyone here was like, what is lupus? Apart from him, who has heard about it, and him. Yeah, so everyone wants to know. So if people that we believe don't know, then how about a person in the village?
Okay.
Yeah.
So going backwards, what is lupus? What is that lupus
is an autoimmune condition that affects mostly women. It's 90% women. And
you're going to go slowly, because even Semuju, things like autoimmune.
I know autoimmune.
It means what?
An autoimmune condition is a condition where your immunity is not fighting against all these other infections, but rather it's fighting against you. So in the long run, you end up sick, you end up with joint pain, muscle pain, you end up with on and off fevers, you end up with a butterfly rash, you end up with a lot of things. The system is literally messed up. So it doesn't know what to fight against and what to fight for. So basically that is it.
Okay, and now there's World Lupus Day on 10th May.
Now lupus, just like you hear fever, there's malaria, there's all these other types of fevers. Autoimmune has types. We've had people, mostly people know arthritis. It's an autoimmune condition. Alopecia is an autoimmune condition. So has lupus. Lupus itself has types. There's systemic, there's nephritis, there's a lot. But I'll talk about what I know that I am dealing with. That is systemic lupus erythematosus. So that one,
you go on.
Most autoimmune conditions have
what
the
type
same
of lupus
characteristics.
does NRM have? Because NRM is fighting itself.
Ibrahim knew what it was actually.
Try and
Maybe he had an idea.
Try and disregard those comments.
Yeah.
Yes, go on.
Basically, lupus affects mostly women. That is one thing. Two, because of the medication we take, that is too much. You have immunosuppressants, you have chemotherapy, so we end up losing hair. You end up, deforming. There's a decolorization where you become a bit dark, or sometimes some people don't even gain weight again. I thank God I did. You're literally on medication for the rest of your life. Some women don't give birth, some do. Sometimes
these are symptoms.
These are symptoms.
So for you yourself, the interest you have in this is because you have or had lupus?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we are trying to make it visible. Because most people, because when you go to hospital, not all hospital tests can detect it. You need a special person or a special doctor to diagnose you. And diagnosis takes time. So in
From
most
the way
cases,
I see you, I would never have known that you ever had lupus.
Yeah. So when you are not properly diagnosed, when you are not properly diagnosed, most cases people think it is witchcraft. So in the long run, you're taken to the village, and before we know, you're dead.
As we're concluding this show, there are all these men on this table that you are sitting with. What would you like them to do?
One, we need to make noise about it. Let's make it visible. Let's maybe the Ministry of Health, maybe the government to come in. Because one, the hefty bills in hospitals, the doctors are rare. Finding like the right doctor alone is a struggle. Even when you have money, it's hard. You need to be taken, and you have to do a lot of tests for them to detect what is wrong. Most of the people that have died have been misdiagnosed, one, and the others have been given wrong medication. You be on wrong medication because of the skin infection. You're in with a dermatologist. They're dealing with something outside, yet it is literally inside. So on 10th May, we want to call upon everyone to come through and learn and get to know. And maybe when we come together, we're going to be at Motive.
A place in Kampala.
Yes.
Okay, so you're going to put out notices about where you...
Yes, we're going to put out notices so that people come through and learn. And maybe if there's a lupus warrior out there that is listening in, you are not alone. Please come. When you're with people that understand your condition, maybe you can deal with it better.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Honorable Semoju, how are you going to help this lupus warrior? We only have 2 minutes of the show left.
It sounds very serious, so I need to learn more.
Yes.
And then those who are already doing some work can assign me. I don't want to assign myself.
I am assigning you already.
Okay. Ivan?
Welcome. Yeah, there's something that worried me when she said, because it's not a popular disease here in the country and not easily detectable. So most people, common, maybe common is but also common. And
you are thinking in terms of elections all the time.
No, that's not true. Something popular is also means it is widely. People, because it's not very common, most people
we need to learn more about it.
To resort to witchcraft, especially in areas that can be very big.
Yeah, that was frightening that they think witchcraft.
About her condition, we've shared quite a lot. Her in particular. Nantume. We're supposed to share in depth about it, and I get right about it, but you just disappeared. So what I'm going to do about it is I'm going to sit down with her and have a story written about her.
Well, bravo.
So much.
Written about the disease.
Not about her.
It is my story we're putting out that is going to inspire.
Joseph,
I'm just a little concerned.
Joseph, yes.
No, amazingly, since this guy's a UPCing issue, I will say this that
Joseph, yes.
Much earlier we were discussing trypanosomiasis and apparent trypanosomiasis, and the research center was in Tororo and has been broken by NRA, and it is a but it's a research center, and it's really important. Hearing about lupus and the reaction we're having on the table tells you how much and how important it is for us to beef our health services, to beef our research systems, and actually not only to make sure that this conversation mentioned are done by the Nantumes, but really as a public health issue.
And I'm a spokesperson. What shall we do?
We shall make sure that we invest in research and we invest in systems that support people who are survivors like her, and make sure that we minimize the cost of these things. And of course, yes, Nantume, you have a UPC support.
Which UPC anyway? That will be fun. Yeah, thank you so much. And about this disease, there are two things that makes, for anybody to be powerful, you need to be healthy and wealthy. Yeah. So anything concerning health is really something we should really look at critically. But now with this current situation where the doctors are moving away from here for greener pastures because somebody takes all that time studying and then is poorly paid, they tend to move away to Kenya, to greener pastures, imagine in Rwanda or Kenya and all this kind of thing. I don't know, you remember rules of procedure. I did not interrupt. Yeah. Now this disease looks very serious, and
just in half a minute now.
Yeah, yes. So we would definitely, at policy level with my colleague, we should really learn more about it and be guided on how government or can
final word on the capital gang by you, Nantume.
We call upon government, any health sector, anyone in the health sector to please come through because people are dying. Medication is expensive. Imagine you buy a tablet at 5,000 and you need to take 4 a day. It's not easy. So you understand. You have to go and do chemotherapy. You have about 4 sessions. It's not easy. You have to be on immunosuppressants. You have to take steroids all the time because this is pain that is invisible. It is an invisible illness. It is incurable. It is chronic. So you're literally battling with a lot. Most of them have committed suicide. So please come through. Thank you so much.
Thank you, our listeners of the day. Thank you, Star Cafe, for powering the gang. Thank you, Nantume Namirembe Penina, for your submission on gang. Everyone is listening. Semujo has learnt a new word, lupus. Honorable Semujo, Honorable Katabazi, thank you.
Lupus.
Pardon?
NRM is suffering from lupus. It's falling apart. So
thank you, Ivan. Thank you, Derek. Thank you, Joseph. I am Oscar Semoyam Soke, and I shall see you next week.